My big tip is people get in their heads like, I'm going to take this Disney trip when the kids are this age. I'm going to go February 2026. Well, I think you should wait to see if promos come around. You should never, even if you're not using any tricks or cards or points at all, you should never pay full price because Disney is always going to come out with 20 to 25 or 35% off hotels. And they're always going to do like a summer ticket deal. And summer is May to September.
Hey there, points people. You just heard a clip from Summer Joy Hall from Summer is Joy. Summer is a content creator who focuses on how to maximize points and miles for your dream Disney vacation without sacrificing on the magic. She visits Disney World 5 to 6 times a year and is always testing out money-saving tips and tricks. In this episode, expect to hear about tips and tricks to save on Disney that usually go under the radar. Things like buying conference tickets for conferences that you do not plan on attending, using Aeroplan miles for Disney redemptions, buying and selling timeshare points, how to avoid financial scams from resellers, and so much more. And if you are looking to maximize your points so you can travel like Summer, you can request a free personalized tutorial video for your next points trip. Just go to geobreezetravel.com/request. We pick one free tutorial to prepare every week, which you'll find in the free GeoBreeze Travel newsletter. So make sure you open our newsletter every Monday to see if your request was the one that we picked and prepared. And now, on with the show! Hey Summer, welcome to the GeoBreeze Travel Podcast.
Hi, Julia. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I am so excited to have you here and to talk about some ways to save on Disney that I don't think we've talked about on the channel before. We're going to talk about DVC points, but also conference tickets and like, are these Disney conferences or what that's about? We're going to talk about using Aeroplan miles for Disney, which I had never heard of before. But before we get into all of that, tell us about you and how did you get into the world of Disney and also points and miles?
Of course. So when I was in college, one of my college friends was doing the Disney college program and she said, you should come visit me. I get 10% off tickets. So I went down for a weekend and that 10% discount was nothing compared to the astronomical cost of Disney. I spent over $1,000 in one weekend and was like, I can never come back here. This was so much fun, but it is just too expensive. And then when she became full-time, she wanted me to visit her again. And one of my other friends sent me a 10x travel resource about how to use points for travel. And that just opened up my world. And my only thought when I was reading about points for travel was this can get me back to Disney. So my motivation for learning about points and miles really was wanting to get back to Disney World and not spend a fortune. And that was in 2019. I started using airline miles. And since then, I've just been diving more and more into more niche strategies because I found the general advice about how to use points for Disney World didn't create the kind of trip I wanted. So I am always testing out new hacks to see if they work and bringing people to Disney with me using mostly points.
How many times have you been since 2019 then?
Okay, since 2019, I've been 30 times.
Wait, what?
Yes, literally 30 times. I had never gone to Disney as a child. I know you went once as a kid. I never did that. We always did local vacations growing up. So my first time ever going was 2017. And that's when I said, I can never come back here. Went once more in 2019 before I discovered points and miles. And after discovering points and miles, I've literally been 30 more times because that's just how obsessed with it I am. And points and miles make it so easy.
Do you live locally?
I do not live locally. I do have to get a flight each time. I live in Maryland. So it is a quick 2-hour flight from BWI to Orlando. Southwest flies like 10 nonstops a day to Orlando from my home airport. So I'm very lucky that I can get down there so quick. Some of my trips have been as little as one night. If I lived farther away, I wouldn't go quite so often, but Southwest points and the Southwest Companion Pass make it easy to get there. And now I've been a pass holder for 3 years and I have used points to pay for my annual pass. So when flights are covered and my pass is covered with points, that just makes it irresistible not to go down as often as I want.
Your pass is covered with points. Your Disney pass is covered with points?
Yes, I covered my Disney World annual pass with credit card points.
Like by cashing out Capital One points off of a statement credit, or what are we talking about here?
So I actually earned a bunch of ink points, a bunch of Chase points from multiple ink bonuses. And then I got the Chase Sapphire Reserve before it went up to $795. I got it when it was still $550. And I take maximum advantage of its pay yourself back feature. So for multiple quarters now, groceries has been a eligible category for pay yourself back on the Chase Sapphire Reserve. And almost all grocery stores sell Disney gift cards. So I was buying like a $500 Disney gift card at a grocery store on my reserve, and then moving points that I earned from my ink cards over to the reserve, and then redeeming them through pay yourself back for 1.25 cents per point.
I see. All right. You mentioned before we started recording that you were using Aeroplan points for this as well. Where does Air Canada's loyalty program come into play since this is in the United States?
Right? Yeah. It's kind of funny when I bring it up to people because they're like, I'm not flying Air Canada or going to Canada. But Air Canada's card, the Aeroplan card, is issued by Chase. And Chase right now, and for the last couple of years, has had an interesting feature where you also can use pay yourself back on the Aeroplan card. And travel is one of those eligible categories where you can get an elevated redemption rate of 1.25 cents per point on any travel purchases with Aeroplan. So I have signed up for the Aeroplan card. I got it when it was 75,000 miles. I think the standard offer is 60,000. So if you ever see it above 60, that's a great time to go for it. But 75,000 miles can redeem over $900 in travel expenses. So if you buy your Disney World tickets from a site like Undercover Tourist, where it's going to code as travel, you can buy $900 worth of Disney World tickets and erase it with 75,000 Aeroplan miles.
Awesome. All right. So we talked about you can use Chase Points Eraser. You can obviously do this with Amex or Capital One. Sometimes it's not always going to be the highest cents per point redemption. Like with Amex, if you're wiping statement credits, I think it can be as low as 0.6 cents per point. What are your thoughts on the whole cents per point? And you're probably aware you can get like more with business class flights and other things. What are your thoughts on all of that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Cent per point is like kind of the thing I always have to handle first when I'm discussing these strategies with points and miles people, because certain points can be worth so much more. So Chase points are super valuable if you transfer them to Hyatt or airline partners. You can get a great business class flight. But for families going to Disney, like if you want the Disney experience, business class flights and those like luxury hotels, they're not the most important thing when it comes to what makes a great Disney trip. So if Disney is your goal, finding creative ways like pay yourself back and the Aeroplan trick to get slightly more than 1 cent per point on those Chase points will stretch your points further. I would never cash out Amex points. In my head, Amex points are for flights. I've used Capital One Venture Miles for tickets for Disneyland, and I've used them for a Disney cruise, but Venture Miles run out pretty quickly because you can only have so many Capital One cards. So I love Venture Miles. And if you're in the points and miles hobby and you're going to Disney as often as I am, you're going to run out of Venture Miles pretty quickly until it's been 4 years and you can sign up again. But Chase points and the fact that Chase transfers to Aeroplan is like the kind of never-ending hamster wheel of points that you can get onto if you want to be that family who does a Disney trip every year for as little as possible. You just do have to accept that I'm using these valuable Chase points because they're also still the best way to get a Disney trip. I could be using them for Hyatt or business class flights, but you can always earn more points for those other kinds of trips.
Yeah, you just have to know that there is an opportunity cost and then kind of go in intentionally of, would you rather Europe or Disneyland? And if the answer is Disneyland, that's fine.
Exactly. And you can do both. Like you can do Disneyland one year and Europe the next year. And points people, we want to go on 10 vacations a year, right? So it just depends on your velocity, how big of an opportunity cost it is for you. For me, it's been worth it. And I do still take those like higher redemption value trips. Like I just did first class home from Hawaii, and the flight I got was nearly 4 cents per point, but that wasn't Disney. And that was just one of my trips of this year. And I'm also going to Disney.
Talk to us about Disney conference tickets. For people who aren't attending any conferences or Disney World, like why would this be of interest to somebody?
Yes, this is one of my favorite topics. I've researched this so much, and you can find information about this online, but some of the articles are really old, and that can like make you uneasy and not sure if this trick still works, right? Because if nobody's talked about it recently, how do you know that this is still legit? But Disney World and Disneyland host conferences all year long. The important thing to know is that I am pretty confident this trick only works at Disney World. Disneyland, I haven't seen any evidence or data points that this works there. So for Disney World, They host conferences, and the companies holding these conferences have publicly viewable links to discounted tickets. And because it's kind of intended when you go to a conference, you're bringing your family, you're bringing your kids so that they can enjoy the parks while you're stuck in conference meetings all day. They allow anyone to buy these tickets. You don't have to prove that you are literally attending the conference in order to buy the tickets through this link.
What kind of conferences are these? Is it just like dentist conference or like real estate agent conference, or is it like about Disney? What is the topic of the conference?
The topics can run the gamut. There's a lot of medical conferences. I've seen ones for kids with disabilities. I've seen ones for just homeschoolers or just cheerleaders. So they're all over the internet. And when you find one of these links, buying the tickets through that link will give you up to 20% off. So in the past, it was a set rate, and the discount you were getting depended on your dates, but they revamped it in 2025. And now if you buy 1-day tickets through this link, they are just a flat 10% off, which is really good because Disney doesn't typically discount 1-day tickets ever. And then if you buy a multi-day ticket, it's a flat 20% off. And you get an extra water park ticket included, which is just an extra bonus if you want to take advantage of that. But the thing about it is conference tickets do not code as travel. So if you have a bunch of venture miles and your goal is to use your venture miles to cover your ticket cost, this route won't work for you. You should buy tickets for Disney World through undercovertourist.com or someplace like that. But you can buy conference tickets with Disney gift card. And we already talked about how I have been able to buy Disney gift cards and use points to offset that cost using pay yourself back. So a 20% off Disney World ticket through a conference link paid for with a Disney gift card that I'm erasing with points at 1.25 cents per point. That's a really great deal. And then you get the ticket immediately. As soon as you hit purchase, the confirmation number you see on the screen is your ticket, and you can link it online. You don't have to show up in person and prove who you are. You don't have to pick up your physical ticket from will call. You can just walk in, tap on your phone without ever interacting with a human being about it. And no one's going to arrest you or say, hey, where'd you get that ticket? I've done this multiple times with my friends and family that I've brought. I now have a pass, but I went on conference tickets myself, and multiple times a year, I'm bringing friends and family, and I'm not telling them to go to disneyworld.com for their tickets. I'm saying, here's a conference ticket link, buy it through there, and then we'll walk in together.
So you can do this for your entire family's tickets as well, where you're all attending the conference.
Right. Yeah. Disney just wants to thank conferences for hosting their event at Disney World. And this is their way of giving back and saying, hey, come into the parks and spend more money, because they make all the money they need to just from the things they sell in the park. They wouldn't even have to charge for admission if they didn't want to, and they would still make a profit because people spend so much on merch and food inside. So I really love this trick, and I had my friend use it as recently as 2 months ago. And you can even do partial day tickets. This is another thing that people really like. And you might think, who would go to Disney just for half a day? But a lot of people are like, they're in Orlando for some other reason, and then they decide, oh, I'd like to go to Disney, but just for a day. You can get a half-day ticket that starts after 1 p.m. or like an evening ticket that starts after 4 p.m. And those will range from 35 to 45% off of the full 1-day priced tickets.
How does somebody find the list of conferences that are available, and how does somebody find these links with the discounts? If they're like, okay, here's my kid's spring break, what's available on these days? Where do you find a list of links?
It's super easy, actually. All you have to do is Google My Disney Group, put it all as one word in quotation marks so that Google knows to keep that together. My Disney Group, Orlando, because we're only looking at Disney World, and then the month in which you're traveling. And I actually look for these links myself because I'm always going and trying to invite people to come with me. All the ones that I've found so far, I have them saved in a highlight on my Instagram page. And I don't gatekeep this information. There's no paywall. It is just front and center on my Instagram. Walt Disney World Ticks. It's a list of all the links I've found with the dates, because you have to find a link that matches your dates. Should have mentioned that at the top. But there are so many links. Almost every day of the year is covered, even Christmas, even spring break. So I put all the dates in that link, but you can just go Google for yourself. My Disney Group, Orlando, March 2026, if that's when you're looking for.
Amazing. So how do these strategies differ from the DVC strategy? For anybody who's not familiar with it, explain what is DVC.
Yeah, so all of those strategies are great for tickets, and a lot of them also translate to offsetting the cost of a DVC resort. So DVC is the acronym for Disney Vacation Club. And a lot of the Disney World resorts that everybody wants to stay at, these aspirational resorts that you see as you're taking the monorail over to the Magic Kingdom and are like $800, $900 a night. They also have timeshare sections called the DVC resort, and you can rent rooms there, and they're very similar to the rooms in the hotel side. All these deluxe resorts have a hotel side and a timeshare side, and you get the exact same treatment no matter which side you're staying in, but you can pay a whole lot less if you're renting timeshare points from some owner who bought in 2002 and isn't using their timeshare anymore than you would pay going on disneyworld.com. And I have researched all of the brokers, like web pages you can go to do this timeshare exchange. There's only about 10 companies that do this, but I already know from my research that pixiepointgals.com is the cheapest one you can use when you're booking 7 to 11 months in advance. And Disney World's so popular, if you know you're going, you should be booking 7 to 11 months in advance if possible.
So how does this work? Like with Disney Vacation Club, you're like purchasing points? Is it like when I try to buy a United flight, I'm like, oh, I can buy it for 80,000 points, but I don't want to transfer my Chase points, so I'll just buy United points. Is it like that point system where you're buying DVC?
It's a bit different from that. And it is confusing because they're timeshare points and we think of credit card points, but really they're entirely different. So every room at a DVC resort is a certain number of points per night. I just came back from the Polynesian resort where my weeknight in September was 14 points. And I rented that from somebody for $20 per point. So you have to do a little math and say 14 times 20 is $280. That's really, really cheap for the Polynesian because the rack rate on DisneyWorld.com was $758. So if you know that a DVC point is not like credit card points and you're trying to get the lowest rate per DVC point, you can see like, oh, this whole week at Disney World in this room is 100 points. If I rent that from somebody else and they charge me $20 per point, I'm paying $2,000 for my week at Disney World. But the great thing about pixiepointgals.com is they code as travel. So you can use Venture Miles, which I think Mandy from Magic and Miles talked about on her podcast with you, but you can also use Aeroplan Miles right now. The 75,000 point Aeroplan bonus would erase over half of that example stay I just listed. And that's just another card to help if you've already signed up for the venture cards and don't have any more of those miles. It's a really great strategy to stay at Disney World resorts because people who don't go to Disney World all the time probably don't realize just how much of a difference it makes in your Disney trip if you stay at a Disney World resort.
So the Pixie Point gals, they're procuring all of these timeshare points from other people selling. So they're like points brokers.
Exactly. They're pulling in from owners who say, oh, I have 200 DVC points that I'm not going to use this year. I'll make a reservation for anybody who wants them. And then they're taking requests from renters like me who say, oh, I'd like to book Polynesians, their like most requested resort because it's so cool and so expensive. And then they just coordinate. And I, as the renter, don't have to make sure that it's not a scam because the Pixie Point gals are facilitating the whole interaction. I can use my credit card, earn points because it codes as travel, and use points because it codes as travel.
Is all of this technically above board? Because whenever somebody mentions points brokers in the world of credit card points or hotel points or airline points, where they're like, there's this points broker and they're willing to sell me X 100,000 Hilton points, Hyatt points, American Airlines points, or whatever. Technically not above board, not something I would usually recommend to clients for the hotel and airline points systems because there's just not a good way to mitigate against that risk. I always just buy points from points.com. Is this above board?
Oh, yes. This is definitely not like buying hotel points or airline points from somebody because Disney themselves allows for the DVC point rentals in the terms of their contract. And Disney World also rents out points. Like when Disney doesn't sell all of the rooms in the timeshare section, then they appear on DisneyWorld.com for people who don't own it all to pay $750 a night for. But yes, renting out points, timeshare points is definitely above board. I think I've done it at least 10 times at this point as a renter. I'm also a timeshare owner with Disney myself, and I have rented out my points to people several times. You check in with no problem. You're treated the same. If you told a cast member, I rented this stay, they would not bat an eye or arrest you and take you to Disney jail. It's totally fine to rent out your timeshare points. It's not like buying other kinds of points.
So you said they can make these just available for sale on Disney's own website. Why go through something like Pixie Point Gals? Is it simply because of how it codes?
Well, it's because of the discount mainly. So the deluxe ones tend to run like at very minimum 400 or 500 a night, but in typical seasons like 700, 800 a night. And when you do a timeshare rental instead, you can save 40 to 50% off of that rack rate. I like to save at least 50. So I tend to go in the seasons that are even cheaper, where I'm saving like 50, 60, even 75% off of rack rate is probably the biggest discount I've gotten. And I've done that through finding timeshare owners myself in forums. That's probably a little bit more advanced, but if you start with renting from a website like Pixie Point Gals and get the hang of it, then in a few years, you may find yourself going for even steeper discounts because you know how the system works. But yeah, the discount is the biggest reason for doing it. And using a website where someone else is facilitating the transaction is the safest way to get that discount.
All right, so you mentioned you can get a steeper discount if you're willing to take on a little bit more risk and cut out the middleman and just do the brokering yourself. If somebody wants to do that, what's kind of your checklist of this person's green flag, this person's red flag?
Okay, yeah, I have lots of things to check for with this. I often find timeshare owners through Facebook group, and I like that method because you can look at their Facebook profile and see, were they born yesterday? Like, how new is this profile? Do they have pictures? Do they have friends? Have they posted in the group before, or did they join the group yesterday? And are they responding to your post with a private DM instead of commenting publicly? And are they responding to your post saying, I have exactly what you need and it's at this super low price? I'm suspicious of like unreasonably low prices, but lower than the brokers is reasonable. And then the most important thing is that the owner who's renting their points to you should take your name and address and phone number and book the reservation for you and send it to your email, meaning directly forward you the confirmation email from Disney and let you link it to your Disney account. So I take that confirmation number they sent me, I go to disneyworld.com, I log in and I connect it. And if it doesn't connect, then I'm not sending them any money. No money should be exchanged until you've proven that the reservation is real and in your account. The big mistake a lot of people make when they do this extra step of doing it themselves and talking to the owners themselves is that they just trust a screenshot that was like sent over chat, and they don't actually try to link it to their account before they Venmo the person $1,500. I'm never going to send them any money until they forward me the real email and I've checked it and all the names are spelled correctly. Because if they're trying to play games and they mess up your name or something so that they can prolong the interaction, that's a red flag. So people who can spell your name correctly after you've sent it to them don't ask you for money until they've given you the reservation. Just have a legit online footprint of interacting with the group and maybe have references. I've asked other people, hey, did you rent from this person before? And waited for them to respond. Those are all great ways to make sure you're not just talking to a scammer in another country who knows enough about DVC to pretend that they have a great reservation.
For somebody on the seller side, let's say that you have a Disney timeshare and you want to get into selling your points. You make these reservations. What should be their kind of risk mitigation before anything goes wrong, where somebody just doesn't pay you? Is the person making the reservations, they're able to cancel or change reservation? So like, what if that were to happen where you give somebody money and then they change the reservation later?
That can happen where you make a reservation and someone ghosts you and never pays. The owner always retains control of the reservation. When I rented to somebody, even though it wasn't my name on that reservation, I can go into my account and just cancel it if they don't pay. So there's really no risk as an owner to letting the person link the reservation to their account before they pay you, because if they just link it and then never talk to you again, you can cancel it. The way you run into trouble as an owner is if you're doing a super last minute rental. If you're renting a reservation to someone that starts in less than 30 days and then they don't pay you, then it's going to be hard to get your points back because the reservation is so soon that Disney puts your points into holding, which means you don't get to use them as freely as before. So really, as an owner, to keep yourself safe, just avoid renting last minute things at all costs. Of course, if it was your own vacation you were planning to go on and then maybe, broke a limb and you need to rent it out, that would require some extra trust with the renter, and maybe ask them, like, can you pay me half first? Then I'll give you the reservation, specifically because it's super last minute, less than 30 days out. But I would never work with anyone who didn't want to pay and it was in advance. And most of the time with these rentals, paying in full upfront. With Pixie Point Gals, you're paying 100% of it upfront. This is very different from like booking a hotel on cash. And with points, it's kind of like with points where when you book it with points, you're paying all the points to reserve the whole thing. So you pay in full upfront. And you do that whether you're renting through a broker or with the owner. And yeah, as an owner, you don't have too much risk on yourself unless they try to do a chargeback. And in that case, you just have to take your dispute to PayPal or Venmo or whoever you used.
But since this is all above board, that's a lot easier to do versus if you were selling something you weren't supposed to be selling and then trying to fight chargebacks. Like, good luck on that.
Exactly.
All right, given this path of conversation, what are other things like financial fraud types of scam things, because they run abound with Disney, where someone's trying to save money and they just kind of get effed over with trying to buy super discounted tickets from a shady website where it's not really Disney tickets? How can somebody avoid some of these? What are common like Disney financial fraud things that people should watch out for?
That's a good question. So just knowing how Disney works is probably the protection against that kind of thing. Like you should know that you can't have somebody else use a partially used ticket. Like if I went to the park for 2 days and I bought a 5-day ticket, I can't sell you the other 3 days. That doesn't work. So there's no sort of partially used or discounted ticket that like somebody else started to use. They just won't let you in. You can always use the remaining value of a ticket later. But another thing is like Disney Magic Bands, the little fancy wristbands that they sell you to tap into the parks in your hotel room. Those can only be linked to one person one time forever. So if you're thinking, oh, I'm going to save money on Magic Bands by buying that cute design on eBay, it's not going to link to you. It's just going to be like a pretty piece of plastic because it's already been linked to somebody. It can never be reused. And then shady ticket sites, like I really just stick to the big ones that are reputable. Like a lot of people still ask, is undercovertourist.com a reputable site? And it totally is. The only thing is that if you only need a 1-day or 2-day ticket, those are actually more expensive on undercovertourist.com because they offer a full refund if you cancel your trip. So undercovertourist.com is legit. Getaway Today is legit. Unlocked Magic is legit. Those are the big ones. And if it's not an authorized Disney ticket seller, I wouldn't go through them. A lot of people have discounts through like T-Mobile or AA or these other like loyalty groups, but their discounts are really never that big because they're going to lie about what the starting price was. So when people tell me like, oh, I think I have a discount through like my T-Mobile, I'm like, that's probably not as good of a discount as Undercover Tourist. Not that it's a scam, but there's just a lot of misinformation that will have you thinking you're getting a good deal when you're really not. And you're still paying that other site commission above what you would be paying if you went some other way.
That's a good point. Where on the internet, I was trying to say financial fraud instead of scam because people overuse the word scam a lot. Where are Black Friday socks or mattresses a scam? Not really. It's just not actually on sale. But I wouldn't say like you're getting scammed out of money to buy socks that you thought were on sale on Black Friday. It's just not that good of a sale. Similar with Disney, where there are some sites, they're legit, you are getting great deals. There are some where it's just not a good deal and some where they're actually just trying to do shady things. So there's levels to this. Any other tips that you have for people who are trying to save on Disney tickets, Disney accommodations, other things where it might be a little bit off the grid?
Okay, yeah. My big tip is people get in their heads like, I'm going to take this Disney trip when the kids are this age. I'm going to go February 2026. Well, I think you should wait to see if promos come around. You should never, even if you're not using any tricks or cards or points at all, you should never pay full price because Disney is always going to come out with 20 to 25 or 35% off hotels. And they're always going to do like a summer ticket deal. And summer is May to September. So unless you have to go Christmas week, I tell people just wait until a deal comes. Like, don't buy your tickets a year and a half in advance when Disney first releases them for the next year. Wait till like 3-4 months before, because they're not going to discount tickets for a period a year in advance. They're going to discount tickets when they see sales are slow 3 months in advance. And that goes for tickets and resorts. Don't just pick a date that you have to go when, if you moved your trip a little bit, you could suddenly be in a period where your room was 25% off and your tickets were 25% off. Wait for those deals because they come around. And then an interesting hack I learned recently. I love the niche things that don't apply to a lot of people, but I learned that UK residents, United Kingdom Disney fans, they have access to longer tickets that are cheaper. They can buy up to a 14-day ticket. In the US, you can only buy a 10-day ticket. but their 14-day ticket is cheaper than our 10-day ticket. And there are some websites where they don't check for residency. So you can buy a UK resident rate on a 14-day ticket. And if you have a nice long trip, you're saving more than you would if you just bought a 10-day ticket here. I just saw on Instagram the author of The Unofficial Guide to Walt Disney World did this with her husband because she had a pass and he didn't. And they were there for like 3 weeks. So she had him get a 14-day UK ticket, even though they live in St. Louis. And I just love that.
How does one find the UK sites where you can buy these tickets without needing to prove residency?
I haven't looked into this enough because I've looked at several sites and I haven't yet like gone through all of the purchasing steps to see at what point do they ask for proof of UK residency. That's one of my like next big topics I want to dive into and share to a degree. So I don't have an answer for you yet on what site is the go-to for this hack, but I'm going to find out because the idea of a 2-week ticket could definitely appeal to some people.
So if people want to follow you to find out the answer to that and whenever new tips and tricks come about, because they're always changing their policies and so many different things are changing every year with the Disney loyalty program, where can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram at Summer is Joy. My name's Summer Hall, and Joy is my middle name. So Summer is Joy was just my cute idea for Instagram. And that is where I do pretty much all my posting. And yeah, I have a Facebook group, the Disney Savings Blueprint, for my students who have the Disney Savings Blueprint course. And yeah, that's where I share all of the tips between those two spaces.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Summer, for coming on to the show today. It was a pleasure having you. And I think a lot of people have never heard about some of these tips and tricks you shared today.
I love sharing about things that aren't talked about as much as other strategies. So I hope your listeners learned something new today.
Perfect. Thank you so much.